Hard Hat Hockey. Welcome in, everybody. It's August 4th, early in the morning here. I'm out on the West Coast, and if you're like me, coursing through my veins is patriotism. With the Olympics going on right now, every single event, I can't get enough of it. Random events. There's some kind of bike event in the middle of a gym. It feels like a high school gymnasium, and they're running around on a track. And if they're wearing the red, white, and blue, I don't care. I'm here, and I'm supporting. Archery, shooting, swimming, gymnastics has been phenomenal. Water polo, volleyball. Can't get enough of it. I had so much patriotism last night, Grant. My wife and I, we watched Air Force One. Because why not watch
the movie?
Yeah, hell yeah.
Harrison Ford?
Harrison Ford's on his own.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites.
Yeah, he's just whooping some ass on some bad dudes. You can't get out of here with you're not overcoming the red, white, and blue, buddy. So that's how I feel about that. A lot of patriotism this morning. Summer Olympics just continuously getting me hyped for the next Winter Olympics and the upcoming Four Nations face-off. Grant, how you doing, brother?
I'm good. I'll co-sign everything you said about the Olympics. It's been a blast, man. I gotta tip the hat. I'm not a huge fan of NBC after kind of how they put the NHL on the back burner for felt like 10 years. But that was a different world. All of a sudden we're in the world of streaming, and Peacock is just the only app I feel like I have on my TV right now, because you can just put that on there, and then there's like 3 or 4 separate Olympic options on there. You can watch that Gold Zone, which is like their NFL Red Zone. You watch individual kind of sports. They've done an amazing job from it. So you gotta, as a guy, kind of like a sports business, sports TV, sports marketing standpoint, like they've crushed it. And it is kind of interesting to see, because I felt like the Olympics were kind of not on the outs. I wouldn't say that, but I remember the past couple, whether it was Tokyo or the rescheduled Winter Olympics, it didn't feel like a marquee event because they couldn't keep up with everyone's just internet and phones. You knew the results of something before it was on your TV, and that's never good. And we've come across that maybe a time or two with hockey. But this one, the Paris 2024, this will be one that I think everyone will remember.
Keeping up with the daily Olympic schedule is very overwhelming for a fan, because you don't want to miss anything. And you're absolutely right. Gold Zone, this new feature on Peacock, it's just like NFL Red Zone. You don't even have to think. They tell you what you need to see, and they're constantly jumping around to anything that's close to a medal or any event that's about to be decided, so you don't miss any of the action. If you haven't tuned into that, highly recommend. With that, fans, we want to hear from you all. I'm trying to give out some new hard hat stickers that we got. You can put these on a cooler, on a laptop, on random pieces of furniture in your house.
Put it on your dog.
Put it on your dog. Put it on your forehead. Walk around. Free advertising. Put it on your car. I don't care. Put it in the middle of your windshield, just like Ricky Bobby with the Fig Newton sign, right?
Putting the stickers on the laptop, that was such a great move in college.
Everyone.
Like your laptop looked like your like football helmet at the end of the year.
Well, now, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just laughing at the thought of like still doing that at like 30. Like I'm in like a meeting with like other adults, and I pull out this like laptop with a bunch of like football stickers and breweries and like my frat letters and stuff. Just silly. That would be like, oh, excuse me, here, let me get my laptop set up. Yeah, I got a PowerPoint. I gotta get looked up. Oh yeah, you've been to the Outer Banks? Yeah, big Outer Banks guy.
It's like, a fine cheese pairs with this glass of wine. Nothing pairs better with this laptop covered with stickers than some ridiculous Gmail account that you're embarrassed
to. Oh, yeah. And you have an email you can send to me? Just text me, actually. Yeah,
I'd rather not reveal my Gmail from 2008.
Yeah, I made it when I was 14. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, yes, fans, reach out. I'm trying to mail you a sticker. Comment on our Facebook. Talk to us. Twitter. I will interact with you, and we'll get those stickers in your hand. Okay, Grant, last week we had a question for the fans. If you could make one trade for your team, what would it be? I went on to say Morgan Frost for the Colorado Avalanche. Morgan Frost, last year of his deal, went to Philadelphia Flyers. We had outreach. Matt from Alberta says Jonathan Huberdeau for anybody. If you're not,
he went a good direction with this.
if you're not keeping up with the situation with the Calgary Flames, I compare it to it's summertime, so I'll go Pirates of the Caribbean. It is a pirate ship that is sinking quickly. With this contract and the team in general, Huberdeau, 7 years left on a $10.5 million deal. He had 52 points last season, which if you're not familiar, for $10.5 million is not what you want to see. This contract currently takes him to 37 years old with the Calgary team, whose ceiling is not incredibly high right now, with limited potential in the rafters, seeing as they don't have a lot of prospects and assets built up and limited talent as it is on the roster. So, yeah, Matt, great take. I hope management, and we'll get to this in the primer with them, but I hope management can figure out something for Jonathan Huberdeau, salvage that situation, maybe get some return. It will be difficult to move that contract without having to eat some of it or take significantly less value. But sometimes, like we saw with the PLD situation with the Los Angeles Kings, sometimes that's just a pill you got to swallow.
Yeah. Bad contracts you can lose sleep over some of these type of setups. So shout out Matt. Thanks for listening. Sorry that the Flames are kind of dealing with this, buddy.
Hey, and I'm not opposed to a Nazem Kadri reunion, which we'll talk about that later in the script.
Yeah, it's coming up.
Yeah, it is coming up. Okay, Grant, today we got train station, housekeeping, primers, and hard hats. Just straight business.
Straight business.
Transaction reactions today are sponsored by Roseville Skate Town, Northern California's premier home for men's league hockey at all levels. Sign up today and receive a complimentary skate sharpening and free case of your Moosehead Lager for your men's league heroes. Good for Roseville. Okay. The transaction train station this week was pretty busy. Low news week, but nice, kind of unsuspecting transactions, I would say, for a couple of these. So rapid reactions for you, Grant, good or bad. I got off the bat, Kirill Marchenko, Columbus Blue Jackets, 3 years, $3.85 million. He's 24, and I like this deal right away because they avoided arbitration, which we've talked about prior.
Yeah, big fan of this deal. Kirill is a guy who's been in the Jackets organization for a long time. He was over playing for SKA in the KHL, and every so often Jackets fans would see like just the most amazing highlight ever from this guy. And we were just on pins and needles of when he could get here. And now he's here, and last year he was one of our best forwards, guy that could put the puck in the net. You know, of all the silver linings, him kind of coming up and grabbing a top line spot last year was probably one of the few bright spots. So having him, you know, locked up for a couple of years, he's probably going to play on the first line with Monahan and Gaudreau. And he's one of these guys. We keep saying these young guys got to need to take the step. You know, he's shown the ability to produce probably more so than a lot of our other young talent. So I got my eyes on him. He's really well liked here in Columbus. He's like a fun, kind of energetic guy, you know, really good with the media. Always got a smile on his face. Really happy we avoided arbitration with him.
Yeah, it seems like a move in the right direction. We'll be talking all things Jackets here momentarily. Yeah. Brock Faber, Minnesota Wild, 8 years, $8.5 million deal. They saw the writing on the wall with this kid. Clearly a high ceiling. He's 21 years old. He had 47 points as a rookie defenseman. Calder Trophy candidate this year. Obviously, trophy ended up going to Connor Bedard, but still as a defenseman, getting the nod for that trophy is fantastic. He was only a -1 on a middling at best Wild team this past season, and carrying a big load early on in his career, 25 minutes average time on ice in his first season. Love this deal. This is one of those, if you kick the can down the road long enough, these deals get more and more expensive. So getting him at $8.5 million at this point is going to pay dividends the deeper you go into this 8 years of duration, in my opinion. Now, that's assuming it works out, but just given the stats that we see already and the ceiling that we see with the Calder Trophy candidacy, I think that this is going to pay dividends for a Minnesota Wild team that needs to start to capitalize.
Yeah, it's I get that. I understand this deal. This deal makes sense. It is, if you're in a position where you have to kind of go for it, and the Wild have a guy of this caliber, by all means, just instinctually, years is a lot of years. We've seen the Wild get kind of underwater with cap space before in the not so recent past. So we always root for guys. I don't think I particularly want to see someone fail, and that's not this, but it's like, it's the Wild. I don't know. Will it pan out? And that's rich coming from a Jackets fan, I know, but damn, that's a lot. That's a lot of money. It's a lot of money for a lot of years, but he's good. He's so good.
He is good. He's clearly a top 2 defenseman, at least on rebuilding teams. And
yeah,
if
you got to pay for blue line help sometimes.
If he solidifies that he's a clear cut top 2 defenseman on a good team, $8.5 million, even 5 years from now, is going to look like a steal.
Yeah.
A deal,
you're right.
A deal that maybe made less sense to me, Marty Necas, who formally has requested trades, seemed like negotiations were on the outs, and I'm still not convinced that there isn't some turmoil here. 2 years, $6.5 million deal. They did avoid arbitration. He's 25 years old. My thing is he could get more money on an open free agency market. So that's point number one. He's a clear bona fide second line center. The guy can blaze a trail. He's incredibly fast. Saw him play live last year against the Buffalo Sabres in Raleigh. Great time. He had 53 points, which was a 20-point drop off from the year prior, and had some problems with his two-way game. He was a -9, but in the playoffs, kind of shored that up. He had 9 points in 11 games. So there's clear upside to this player. He's at least a second line center. I think he wants a larger role, maybe a team that will take him a little more serious, hence why he wanted the move out of Raleigh. I don't view this as clearly it's not some long-term commitment. If they really saw his potential and wanted him long-term, this would have been a longer deal. For a 25-year-old only getting a 2-year contract, that's concerning to me. I don't foresee this being a long-term relationship. Good for him.
You could even make it like a 3-year deal if that was the case. Like two is like, in the world of the NHL, that's almost nothing.
2 kind of screams to me, Hey, just focus on hockey right now. We're happy to have you, but be prepared to get moved.
If the right deal comes down the line, you know, this probably gives them some leverage, and it's probably enough of a team-friendly deal that if someone does want them, they're not gonna, hesitate just because of the number.
Which, if I'm a contender and I see this contract at this year's trade deadline, this is a target for me. That's good value, and you pick him up to go on your playoff run. I'd take that deal. So, okay.
Interesting. Watch this space. Keep our eyes on it.
Yep. New York Rangers, Ryan Lindgren sounds a 1-year deal, $4.5 million. He's 26, had a good year on the blue line for them. They just locked up Brendan Schneider, 22-year-old on the blue line as well. Lindgren was a +22, had 17 points and 20 minutes average time on ice. He was stalwart defenseman, very stand-up defensive guy, kept the puck in front of him, obviously, helped out one of the best goaltenders in the world if he even needed help, with his +22. So clear ability to limit chances and keep the puck out of the net. 1-year deal, also concerning. And maybe they view this window because they do have to pay Igor Shesterkin here very soon. Maybe they view it as, let's capitalize right now, and we won't be able to afford Ryan Lindgren anyways, so we got him for 1 more year, and this is the year we have to capitalize. Maybe that's kind of their thinking.
That would track. 20 minutes time on the ice, pretty impressive. Yeah, I like Ryan. I kind of like this Rangers team a lot, just how it's constructed. I know they're in the Metro, but let's be honest, the Jackets aren't going to be competing with the Rangers for seeding. That's not going to happen. So I got my eyes on these guys. You see this from time to time when teams know they're going to be up against the cap, or they're going to be up against another pay raise, where you're just kind of trying to stave off the inevitable sometimes. But, he probably wants to stay with this team and compete if he's, if he's in this position, because he might have another great year and increase his value even more so. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. This also avoided arbitration. A lot of these deals were to avoid arbitration. So
That's
for
good.
getting a deal done. And now you can just focus on hockey for at least one season. Out of Montreal.
Rangers don't have a lot of cap space.
No, not
They're one of those teams that's under $1 million.
Yeah. Out of Montreal, Caden Gould, 22-year-old blue liner, got a 6-year deal, average cap hit $5.55 million. He's been playing on the top line with Mike Matheson, who's veteran presence showing Caden the rope. Clearly, they see the writing on the wall with this kid in terms of his longevity and ceiling with the team. A lot of potential here. There's a lot of potential in Montreal in general. And if even a percentage of it could pan out, they're in for some good times. Just not right now. So I don't mind the deal. $5.5 million is, if you're talking about a top line defenseman already, that's nothing. So I think this kid comes out and look to Montreal of years to come.
That's like good value blue line deals right now is anywhere, like, I think anywhere between 5 and 6.5 is kind of that window.
Okay. That was it for the transaction train station this week. Going over to NHL housekeeping, let's clean it up. Not a whole lot of news, but some speculation, at least to chew on and have some fun with. So 2025 potential free agents. We've got, I did a list of the All-Stars essentially that are on the last year of their contracts. What we're going to go through these names. You're going to tell me, do they get a deal or not? Do they go to free agency or do they
get a deal with their current team?
Yeah, so they get a deal with their current team, or do contracts stall and do they go to free agency? Or are they moved before? Are they moved before the end of the season? Here's the name of the game, Grant. 2025 potential free agents. We've got a list of NHL All-Stars right here on the last year of their deal. Rapid fire, you're going to tell me, do they get a new contract with their current team, or do they see the open market? Do they see free agency at the end of this coming season, or are they traded before the end of the season? So rapid fire, are you ready?
Got it. I'm ready. Love this.
Mikko Rantanen of the Colorado Avalanche.
Considering the Avs cap situation, I don't think there's a way, but I'm not an accountant. But I don't think he's coming back to the Avs.
Well, it's because it's the cap space for next season.
Right? Sure. But I just generally speaking, you're in trouble now with the cap. I mean, is that going to clear itself up in time to get him?
I mean, they said talks were close recently. So,
okay.
That doesn't mean anything, but until it's been,
you have to say that almost.
Yeah, that's also a good point. So
I mean, for the Avs' sake, I want to be like, yes. But if there's any team that I feel like is going to struggle, it would be them to find the dollars.
He will cost every bit of $11 million, if not. He won't be north of 12 because that's what McKinnon makes. But yeah, it'll be expensive.
Good.
He's
so good.
He's very good. All right.
Yeah.
Brock Besser, Vancouver Canucks.
I can't imagine him not in Vancouver. We were talking kind of off mic about guys that just have been with their team for so long. And I just associate him with the Canucks so much. Again, a team with really, I won't say a bad cap situation, but they don't have the freedom that some of these other teams that we're going to talk about. And I don't know if he is, I mean, he's another guy probably is going to make he's probably due for like 11 million, 10 or 11 million, right? That's probably a fair number. I don't know if they're going to be able to get him. I don't know. I can imagine him more than Nico. I can imagine being on the open market.
Yeah, I agree with that statement. Another thing about his goal scoring ability, it's one thing to score 40 plus goals in the regular season. It's another thing to score clutch goals in the playoffs. And that is exactly what he just did. Playoff goals, while they're great in the present moment, become very expensive very quick when you're talking about a new contract.
Yep.
Jamie Benn. Sorry.
No. Well, yeah, Jamie, he feels like he's primed to go into the free agent market.
See, I think he's just been Dallas Stars through and through for so long. I think he re-signs for something super cheap, super team.
Really?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Because if
You're right. I mean, he in the same way I just talked about Brock and Miko, like, yeah, he is the Dallas Stars, but I could also see the Stars maybe not trying to blow it up, but maybe getting too cute and being like, no, we have to be sometimes teams in front offices kind of overthink this, where like they should just be like, he's a good player. He's been with this team. Like, let's dance with who brung us. Sometimes teams will be like, no, actually, like dollars per point, we can recreate him with 3 cheaper players. Like, I could kind of see the Stars like overthinking this a bit.
they're not far from a large financial commitment to Miro Heiskanen, and then they're also going to have to discuss Logan Stankoven and Wyatt Johnston. They're 2 new rookies who performed very well in this year's playoff run. So with the space remaining, that's when you're finally getting to the priority that is Jamie Benn. He's going to be lower on the priority list. I still think he'll be one until Dallas wins a Stanley Cup, and he's a part of that solution. I think he's going to stick around, no problem. Okay.
That's the ideal scenario if you're a Stars fan, obviously.
Mitch Marner, Toronto Maple Leafs.
I feel like Mitch Marner's name has been every few years. I know RFA market much different than UFA market, but like if there's anyone that's going to be like on the free agent market, it's got to be Mitch. I mean, this year might go differently, but I mean, the Mitch Marner sweepstakes is going to just sweep the continent. It's going to be amazing.
Okay. John Tavares.
I don't think he's coming back.
John Tavares, Toronto Maple Leafs.
Are we going to do this? Are we going to do the Tavares watch again? So if you're the Leafs, do you admit that, hey, maybe it isn't all worth it and we kind of have to reconfigure this team? Because that especially combine Mitch and Tavares. If you put both of these guys out to UFA, almost kind of rebuild, you're kind of admitting that the past was like 4 or 5 seasons that they just weren't it.
Which is the hardest point for management. And right now you're talking about Brendan Shanahan, who has the hottest seat in the NHL by far. So
yeah, and maybe letting these guys go, I don't know if it buys you time, but it's at least a different path.
I've already committed to my hot take in saying that the Maple Leafs barely missed the playoffs and it doesn't work out and they blow it up. And both of these 2 are on the departure list.
Yeah.
That's a very hot take. I understand.
If you enjoy chaos, if you're like a college football fan that always roots for upsets and top 5 teams to lose, this is kind of the chaos pick right here. Like, get them out of there. New team, new setup around Matthews. But yeah, it'd be hilarious.
I mean, I don't think it's like out of the realm of possibility at all. I think the odds.
I also don't think it's out of the realm of possibility to just bring both of these guys back and just be like, well, they're good.
I think
they're good players.
The odds of one of these names getting moved is incredibly high. I find it very difficult to believe both just come back and re-up to another long-term deal with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Your fans are going to riot if you do that.
But then some of the fans would riot if you left them too. Like, that's just how big the Leafs are as like an organization. Like, you're going to get heat from both sides no matter what.
And to those fans, I would ask, because you've experienced so much playoff success?
I don't know. Because I think they have the idea themselves is like, we don't have to we shouldn't have to rebuild. These guys are so good. Like, I think there is a section of Leafs fans that just, look at a guy like, especially Tavares, even though he is older. Marner, I think people have started to question him, especially after the playoffs he had last year. But like what I said a little bit ago, I think there's a group of guys that'll just say, well, these guys are good. Like, you should want good players on your team. And we'll just be, they'll be disappointed with the idea of blowing it up just as a concept.
Yeah. Okay. Moving right along, Florida Panthers. We've kind of talked about this one already. Aaron Ekblad's in the last year of his deal. I think they get another contract done for him. I don't think he hits the free agency market, and I think he comes back to Florida on a lower cap hit, obviously.
I agree with that. I can't imagine him. And I think if anyone should make the numbers work, it's our guy, Bill Zito.
Okay. Pittsburgh Penguins, the retirement home at this point. Sidney Crosby on the last year of his deal. Common sense would tell you if he wants another Stanley Cup, he has to accept a new franchise as his home. But it has been said on record multiple times at this point that he wants to remain and retire a Pittsburgh Penguin. So that is, if he's having an internal struggle with what to do and how he wants his career to end, you're arguing between loyalty to the beautiful city of Pittsburgh or Cup stardom and going for it one more time with something different. Because let's just be honest, Pittsburgh's not winning a Stanley Cup before he retires. I'm sorry. It's just not.
Yeah, I mean, like most teams aren't going to win a Stanley Cup. It's really hard to do that.
True.
So if that's like, there's no way he leaves Pittsburgh. There just isn't. He's too much. We've talked about guys within this segment here, which I've really enjoyed this, to say like, oh, this guy is imagine the Stars without Jamie Benn. Imagine, Brock anywhere that isn't Vancouver. Sidney Crosby's not leaving Pittsburgh. Like, there's no way. There's just no way. And I don't think he sees himself as like, oh, I got to get one more cup. I think he's probably, I don't know what motivates him at this point to play every day. I think if you ask a player, obviously they're always going to say lifting the cup, and he's done it enough times where he knows what it takes. But he has to understand that like this team's they've missed the playoffs 2 years in a row. It's not happening, but like it's probably okay that it's not happening. I don't know. Like he is Sidney Crosby. He is the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Okay.
I know you want him in Denver because he's boys with McKinnon.
I wasn't even going to say it. I wasn't even going to. But yeah, that's what I'm sitting here thinking. Okay. Leon Draisaitl, Edmonton Oilers. This is going to be a very expensive new contract. Does Edmonton have the appetite? If they don't win the Stanley Cup this year, which they just lost in heartbreaking fashion in Game 7 to the Florida Panthers. If they don't win it this year, do they have the appetite to recommit to Leon Draisaitl for which will probably be at least 7 years and north of $12 million? Probably 13.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about the Leafs being in a tough spot. I mean, at least Edmonton's getting close. They're right there. I think it all depends on how this year shakes out. It's really hard right now because this is a team where it's like they might win it. Like you can pick the Oilers to win the cup, and I don't think people would like bat an eye out of that. And if they are going to do that, if they are going to get close, like he's going to be his guy. And then I don't know. Do you ask Connor what he thinks too? If you're the GM, like, hey, we might not bring this guy back. And then McDavid's just like, the hell you aren't. Like, he has to be here.
I think you ask Connor, but I also think Connor internally is probably thinking to himself, if we don't win it this year, how long am I willing to stick around here in Edmonton? I don't foresee it. He's not like a guy like Crosby screams to me like he's committed to the Oilers for his entire career. I don't.
Well, but if the Pens don't win the cups that they win, maybe Crosby's career is just completely different. That's the thing. That's the thing with Crosby is like he's done it. He is cashed in the promise that he was to Pittsburgh when he was drafted. Connor has done that to an extent, but let's be honest, if you're not lifting a cup, winning a cup is incredibly difficult. Connor McDavid is of that tier of players that like we expect him to do that at least once in his career, whether that's in Edmonton or not. Team try to be too cute and overthinking it and not just being like, no, this is our best player's wingman. Like, ride with this. Everything else can be fixed but this. I can see it's all going to depend on how this year goes.
Agreed.
Truthfully.
All right. That's going to wrap up NHL housekeeping for the week. Let's go into our preseason primers. First and foremost, out of Washington, the Capitals. They finished fourth in the Metropolitan Division last season. Did make the playoffs, eliminated him.
Snuck in there.
Pretty short work in that first round to the New York Rangers. GM is Brian McClellan. Head coach Spencer Carberry. Cap space currently is minus $10 million. They are $10 million in the red That is going to figure itself out very quickly, and I'll tell you why here in a second. Notable moves this offseason. They signed Matt Roy, coming over from the Los Angeles Kings to a 6-year deal by $5.75 million. Traded Nick Jensen and a third to Ottawa for Jacob Chychrun for Blue Line help. Traded a 2025 second round for Andrew Mangiapane over from Calgary. Acquired goalie Logan Thompson from the Vegas Golden Knights. He will seemingly probably be their backup. And they traded Darcy Kemper to the Los Angeles Kings for Pierre-Luc Dubois. We talked about that deal to extent
PLD
here on this show. PLD clearly brought in to help Alexander Ovechkin with the long-term IR departure, unfortunately, of Nicky Backstrom. Backstrom was the longtime tandem and wingman of Alexander Ovechkin, set him up for a lot of his goals through his career. So they were looking for a replacement there, and I think they see some potential for PLD to come out of the rut that he's been in for
Watch it work. Watch this work. Watch it just, these two just blaze a trail of goals and points to like a top 2 finish in the Metro.
I think it works enough to be a average team in this average division. I don't think it works enough for any kind of playoff run. Key forwards for the Capitals. Alex Ovechkin, obviously, 38 years old, $9.5 million. PLD, 26 years old, has had a very tumultuous start to his career for pretty much the entirety of it.
Well, let's say that I can't say the start. It's this weird second window post Columbus.
I mean, he was
here for like 4 years and it was great.
This is his 4th team in a very short amount of time.
Yeah, but that's not the start of his career. Career was in Columbus.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. It's the second one. It's him trying to like spread his wings.
I would argue that if the start of his career was going so well, he would still be in Columbus.
That's fair. That's a fair. Okay. All right.
26 years old.
Yeah.
$8.5 million. 24 points last season. He was demoted to 4th line center. So 24 points at that cap hit is not what you're looking for. So clearly Brian McClellan is looking for some ignition to spark the igniters a little bit on hopefully some chemistry that can explode between him and Ovechkin. Dylan Strome, love this guy, 27 years old, $5 million. Dude moves very well and easily a 3rd line center, can fill in as a 2C when needed. And then Mangiapane over from the Calgary Flames, $5.8 million deal. He can also fly. On the blue line, we're a little bit older. John Carlson, 34 years old, $8 million. We talked about Matt Roy, 29 years old. Jacob Chychrun coming over from Ottawa. He's also seen a lot of different teams in the past couple of years.
Yeah,
26 years old, $4.6 million. And then Rasmus Sandin, 24 years old at $4.6 million deal. So a little bit to be desired there. Here's how I see this playing out. I don't know if this plan right now, if these additions and this roster as it stands is trying to capitalize on a playoff run as much as it is trying to capitalize on getting Ovechkin to Wayne Gretzky's goal record. I think they're providing stopgaps to give Ovechkin support. He's 41 goals away from Gretzky's record of 894. I think that's clearly what they're gunning for here. I don't view these additions as long-term solutions that are going to solidify them in some realistic playoff runs. I don't see that here.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I think if you ask like the C-suite execs with the Caps, they're saying, yeah, we want to get this record broken. We want to be able to sell a lot of t-shirts and ad deals and media buy-ins with, Ovi doing this. I mean, it's crazy how close he is. I mean, this was a goal. This was a record. I mean, we talked about growing up is like, no one's going to touch this. And now we're 41 goals from it. That's achievable. But is that getting the rest of the roster excited for? And like, part of me kind of thinks it might, because like what we just said, it's such an insane record. And if you're a 3rd or 4th line player and you can be like, I was a part of that in a way, that might actually be enough to get these guys to not bottom out. And what we're going to talk about over the next couple of episodes with the Metro is the Metro is such a blender that like, yeah, the Caps probably aren't going to compete for like the top spot, maybe not even the second, but similar to last year, someone's got to make the playoffs out of this. And yeah, they weren't good, but they were also a couple wins away from being third even and not just sneaking in like they did. So someone's got to end up in that mid-level spot in this division, and it might still just be the Caps based on just Ovi getting enough goals on the power play and beating the teams below them.
Something we spoke to before the show was the Atlantic is pretty much, it's clearly solidified who at least 3 of the teams that you can pick out that are going to make the playoffs. You could argue.
And it's been that way for like 5 years.
Yeah. And you could argue for a fourth. The Metro, you could play this season out 100 times and you might get 100 different outcomes. It is a blender. And you're right. Maybe just working towards this goal record solidifies them in a wild card spot, maybe. You know, like they've got to score goals, and which will yield some victories, obviously, if they're going for this goal record for Ovechkin, which isn't a bad strategy. Obviously, they're going to make a ton of money on merchandise and ticket sales to see, you know, witness greatness right before our eyes here in the.
You're going to get the entire hockey community on like Ovi goal watch as this gets close, and that's, I mean, you know, everyone wants to lift the cup. Everyone wants to get close to that. Like that is such an insanely like low probability individual record that you still put a lot of equity behind it.
Yeah. We talked about how they're $10 million in the hole at the beginning of their primer. That solidifies itself and figures itself out very quickly. Nicky Backstrom, longtime center for the Capitals, has already said that he has to take a step away from the game for medical reasons. So he is already on long-term IR. I unfortunately don't know or foresee if he ever plays in the NHL again. And then TJ Oshie has had a slew of injuries the last couple of seasons, just had hand surgery, figured that out, but now he's got...
You never want those hands to be...
He's got a lingering back injury, which he spoke to at the end of the season. He's struggling to even get himself to the bathroom. He's struggling to play with his kids at this point. And he said recently, a couple of weeks ago, his trainer and him have explored all options for the back solutions, and they are running out of time and ideas. And he has already said with confidence that if he can't get to a point where he feels that his back is strong enough to get to training camp, then he has no problem stepping away, and he's very happy with the career that he has had. So that doesn't sound super promising to me that TJ Oshie returns. I hope that he does because I love TJ Oshie. But with
how old is TJ at this point?
38.
38. Oh, he's 38. Oh my God. I thought he was a little younger than that. Wow. Yeah, that's a pretty impressive career. You hate to see it go out like that though. Back injuries are scary, and
yeah. So right away with these two players on the IR, you get $15 million in cap relief. So they were 10 in the hole. So off the bat, you now have $5 million in cap space, just doing the simple math there. So that's
some breathing room.
Yeah. Charlie Lindgren had a nice into the season, had a 9/11 save percentage going into the playoff run. Obviously didn't have a lot of help, got absolutely peppered in that New York Rangers series. We'll be relying a lot on this blue line to limit those chances. I don't view this team as scoring a ton of goals outside of PLD setting up Alex Ovechkin, as we've talked about at length. So,
and the blue line's not phenomenal.
It's not.
They might surprise me, but that's never really been the Caps like identity.
It's not great.
Yeah.
I see this team as average at best. Their main goal is to get Ovechkin over that Gretzky line. I've got them 5th in the Metro. Maybe they get to 4th and somehow can compete for like a last wild card spot again or something like that if things pan out with injuries. But this team has a short-term goal in mind, not a long-term goal.
Yeah, which, you know, considering what the goal is, it's tough to argue against maybe putting him. We're kind of speculating here. Like, I think that's probably the overall goal. I would keep saying goal, but I don't see them getting top 3, but like you said, weird stuff is going to happen in the Metro, and they'll if they're healthy and just kind of getting results against teams that are worse than them, they're gonna you just rack up points regardless of that. So they'll be in the mix.
All right, agree completely. Let's go down to Raleigh, North Carolina to our Caniacs. Last year they finished second in the Metropolitan Division. New GM coming in, Eric Tulsky, as Don Waddle departs for the Columbus Blue Jackets. And head coach got extended for 3 years. My man Rob Brindamore.
Let's go.
Workout
big body.
They currently sit at $5.4 million in cap space. They just signed Marty Necas to that 2-year deal to avoid arbitration, as we spoke to. Jack Drury signs a 2-year deal, $1.7 million. Jack Roslovic, 1 year, $2.8 million. Jacob Slavin, going to be a anchor on the blue line, 8 years, $6.4 million. Sean Walker signs a 5-year deal at $3.6 million. Shane Gostisbehere, 3-year, $3 million deal. And then they traded Jake Gensel. Jake Gensel acquired at the deadline for their playoff run. They did not have the space to keep him around for the $9 million that Tampa was willing to pay him. So they traded him to Tampa for a 3rd-round pick before unrestricted free agency kicked off. Departures are notable. They lost Tara Vinen, went back to Chicago for his homecoming. Brady Shea went over to the Nashville Predators, and Brett Pesce up to the New Jersey Devils. So pretty significant losses there, and we're going to talk about if they made up the losses with the additions that they made. Their key forwards this season: Sebastian Aho, 27 years old, $9.75 million. Andrei Svechnikov.
Oh, Svechnikov. Well, we both butchered it. Okay, good job, Trent. You got it.
Andrei Svechnikov, 24-year-old, $7.75 million. And Marty Necas, 25, $6.5 million. Key defensemen: Dmitry Orlov, 33 years old, nearly $8 million. Jacob Slavin's 30, 6.4. Brent Burns is 39, $5.28 million. This is an old blue line. Jacob Slavin, probably the most talented at this point. Brent Burns is due to slow down any day now, seeing as he's 39.
One of these days.
Wonder if it always comes to a pretty quick stop when you start to get north of that 37 years old and you're still playing. You wonder if 82 games is even realistic at this point. Jacob Slavin will be relied upon immensely. I like Sean Walker and what he provides to a team. He had a good year with the Philadelphia Flyers last season and came in and did pretty good work with the Colorado Avalanche. Disappeared a little bit in the playoffs, you could argue, but nonetheless, he is a good defenseman in the NHL. I do fear that Sean Walker and Shane Gostisbehere combined do not make up for the loss of Brady Shea and Brett Pesce. These are good players. Yeah. They do not have the defensive depth that they had last season. Seeing those departures, Dmitry Orlov.
That's important for how they play.
It is, and they work from the blue line forward. Their Corsi numbers and possession numbers have to be one of the best in the league.
It has to be. Yeah.
They struggle to score, and with the departures of that defensive depth and their lack of star power up front, I have concerns. I have questions. I think there's questions in this forward group. Svechnikov has been around that NHL All-Star talk for a long time, pretty much since he's been into the league. He's just never really stepped forward to solidify himself. Aho's a great player, but doesn't score at a clip that maybe justifies his large, nearly $10 million deal. And Marty
could just be the system, though, sometimes. You know, like the way they play doesn't lend itself for just like individual brilliance. You know, the goals kind of just happen as like a consequence of the pressure they put the other team under.
I think what this team needs more than anything, though, if they're going to make another step forward, finally past the second round of the playoffs, is some all-star performances. And
no, that is the agreement that the Canes have made, is like, we will do a system that will generate goals and points throughout the year, and it might limit, like I just said, individual brilliance or individual creativity, and at some point in the playoffs you do need that. At some point in the playoffs, you need a guy like Artemi Panarin who can just say, screw it, I'm going to do it myself. And you can win enough games in the playoffs to make a difference. I think Aho is good enough to do that, but I just think sometimes the way they play, just if the puck doesn't go in and the other team is able to break on the counter a couple times and you're down 2 goals, you're kind of left you're left in a weird spot. And we've seen it time and again. I know we're going to get into predictions here, but I didn't know their blue line was as old as it was at this point. That's a little concerning. That's the first time I'm looking at this team with a little bit of a question mark.
It is concerning. Sean Walker's 30 now. Shane Gostisbehere is 33. So it's not a young blue line by any means, which then you're also opening up the conversation of injuries. No doubt you got an entire blue line that's almost north of 30. There's going to be some injury this season. And I question how they make up those losses, like I said, of Brady Shea and Brett Pesce. I also question their ability to score goals at a consistent clip. Between the 3 top forwards, Aho, Svechnikov, and Necas, who you just gave a 2-year deal, pretty much solidifying that you don't see a long-term commitment with him. I don't know how you make that up. So my keys to success pretty much reflect my questions. For forwards at the depth position, such as Jack Drury and Kotkaniemi and Jack Roslovic, will have to step up and play beyond what they've been asked to play. Svechnikov will need to become a star, which he still can do at 24 years old. He's had a positive Corsi for his entire career, but he's never eclipsed that 70-point marker as a first-line forward, which I realize 70 points isn't something that's super common, but when you're close to $8 million and you're a guy who's being asked to anchor the forward group, you need a guy, at least one guy on your team to get close to that point per game pace every single season. Right now that hasn't been there, and they're going to need to get there quickly if they're going to score some goals and stay where they have been, which is extremely competitive in the Metropolitan Division. Another huge question mark, Grant. Frederik Andersen and Peter Kochetkov were their goaltending tandem last season. It didn't work out great. A lot of injuries. Freddie Andersen only played 16 games. He had 10 games in the playoffs, but reflected an .895 save percentage. Anytime you're below 90, you're not putting your team in the best position to win. It's not good enough, and that was something they needed to address this offseason, and they didn't do it. They're rolling back with the same tandem. Because of this,
I'm surprised. Yeah.
We've identified question marks on the forward core. We've identified question marks on the blue line. We've now identified question marks in the crease. I think there's clear regression here. I think they finished 4th in the Metropolitan Division, whereas they finished 2nd last year. I think that could be good enough for a playoff position as 4th in the Metro, but there's also nothing that says that the Atlantic Division won't take 5 spots, with both wildcard spots coming from the Atlantic and the Canes potentially missing the playoffs here too. I don't see a clear path with this team right now. I think they've got some good players, but it's murky, man.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to be this 100-point team that we've seen the past, I would say, 4 seasons that they've been able to do that. I still think they're going to be in the playoff conversation. I don't think there's anyone. Yeah, like the Canes have question marks, and we talked pretty highly of the Devils, and it wasn't that long ago that the Devils made the playoffs, and maybe they had a bad year last year, but you're kind of thinking this team's got question marks that are going to drop. Who else in the Metro is primed to jump? I don't think the Islanders are there. We talked about the Caps and Penguins kind of being on the back 9, of the golf course doing different things. I don't know if the Flyers there, the Jackets surely aren't. The Canes are still just going to probably be in the mix with the way this division is, but I don't think they're going to be a 100-point team. I don't think they're going to be dominant like we've seen.
I agree. Okay, let's go up to Columbus. We'll finish off
Let's do it.
Finish off the primers, baby. The Columbus Blue Jackets finished 8th in the Metropolitan Division. New leadership, Don Waddle, as we just discussed, came over from Carolina. Head coach, brand new to the system, Dean Evison, coming over from the Minnesota Wild. We talked about his record, very impressive with a average Wild team for a long time. Cap space, they've got $10.9 million in space, so plenty of room to make some additions if they wanted to. Notable moves so far. They signed Kirill Marchenko, which we spoke to early in the episode, 3-year by $3.85 million. Kent Johnson, 3-year by $1.8 million. He'll be somebody to watch out for with a potential high ceiling.
Bridge deal.
Yep. Sean Monahan, 5-year, $5.5 million. And they traded Alexander Texier. They traded Alexander Texier to the St. Louis Blues for a 4th-round pick. Not the busiest offseason, but when you're in a position like the Columbus Blue Jackets, you don't really need a busy offseason. You've got your blue chip assets in place. You just got to let them grow. You got to ride the wave and let these flowers blossom. Grant, where are we at? How are we feeling with the offseason moves?
So I think big picture, the new GM, the new coach, that was the things that like had to change. Micro level, bringing in Monahan, so much of what we're going to judge this team by is Johnny Gaudreau's output. Listen, has Johnny been the 40 goal scorer, light up the rink, lead the league and kind of, goals and points and energy and attention that he was in Calgary and Columbus? No, he hasn't. Has he been our best player though? 100%. He himself has not disappointed. It's everything around him has not been put in a position to succeed. So if you can get Monahan next to him, and if that's what's needed, then great. I think that's honestly like a pretty good deal. And I don't really worry about him taking Fantelli's minutes because I think, at a certain point there'll be enough ice time for the both of them. I don't think this is going to stunt Fantelli's development. I think it's actually probably going to help in the short term. These young guys did not have a great year last year. Fantelli obviously got hurt. KJ got sent down. Cole had a better year this year than he did 2 years ago, which is a good step in the right direction. We got to get him re-signed. But the blue line, guys like Zurich, he got sent down twice. The kind of conversation that's been happening in Columbus, I'm going to wrap this up to what we're looking for this year, is last year between the GM and the coach, who neither one's here, they were asking too much of these young guys, not putting them in positions to succeed. And when they inevitably did not meet expectations, they were then thrown aside. So put into difficult situation, didn't work out, they're sent down to the AHL or benched. That's not a great place to be as a young player, and that's really detrimental to getting the most potential out of all of these kids. That's the thing that needs to change probably more than anything. Yeah, I want to see Johnny score goals. I want to see Zach have an all-star level season. I would love for the goalie situation to kind of improve. But like more than anything, I want to see Fantelli and Kent Johnson and Zurich and even Matejchuk play a lot of games and just get ice time in a positive way. That's what I'm looking for more than anything. I think they improve. I don't think they get out of the basement. I mean, unless like a team really like bottomed out, I don't think there's anyone worse than the Jackets right now on paper. But I could go a lot of different ways with this team. I'm really excited to see the new coach. I hope that we've had like 4 new coaches in 5 years. Hoping this one sticks.
I think he sticks. I think he just needs patience. So let's talk about the key forwards for this group. Johnny Gaudreau and Sean Monahan solidify their reunion from their previous days with Calgary. Seemed like 10 years ago. Kirill Marchenko, we talked about. And then the young guys, Adam Fantilli, Kent Johnson, and Cole Sillinger. Cole Sillinger, I think, is due for a bounce back. I've always been very high on his game. I like what he brings to the center position, and I think he just needs a little bit of patience. I think he needs a little bit of time, and I think he is going to solidify himself. On the blue line, Zach Werenski, been there for a while. He's 27 years old, $9.58 million. Damon,
he had a great year last year. He had a very underrated season. 2 years ago, he hurt his shoulder like early in the year and couldn't play. He had a great bounce back year last year. No one saw it because it was in Columbus, but Zach's been great.
They will lean on him heavily again this season. Damon Severson, 29 years old, $6.25 million
contract.
Spent, a lot of time with the New Jersey Devils. This is probably a tough contract at this point. I wonder if they try to move it.
This was our last GM's kind of act of desperation, and we're going to be stuck with it for a little while.
Yeah, with 4 years left, I believe that will be tough to move. Mm-hmm. Ivan Provorov, 27-year-old, $4.73 million deal. And then you spoke to David Jirek?
Yep.
David Jirek. He's 20. He's on his entry-level contract. He's a guy you would like to see blossom this year in a top 4 role on the blue line. My keys to success for the Blue Jackets, you got to get good return on Patrik Laine. As it stands, I think I saw this past week only one team was interested in a potential trade. They're having trouble finding a partner to take on his services. So there's potential Laine still on the team going in to training camp. You've got a potential issue in the crease. Elvis Bersalikins, his name has been in trade rumors a lot. And I wonder if is he the guy at this point, or do you ride with Tarasov in the backup role and try to figure out more of a long-term solution?
So Tarasov's had injury issues. What Don Waddle has been on the record of saying, this was like one of the first things he was asked about was, what are we going to do about the goalie situation? And it's clear that Merzlikins has had better years. But what Waddle basically says is like, there's not a team that's going to take on that contract. He's got to make it work here. So he's kind of said like, Elvis is our guy because he has to be our guy. I've always said goalies are weird. There was a time in this organization's history where it felt like we had to move on from Sergei Bobrovsky. And then Bobrovsky has a couple amazing years and we make the playoffs. Is Elvis as good as Bob? Probably not. But have we seen Elvis at the top of his game in a way that, I believe is still there? Yeah, I think so. But we have some young talent below him. Like you said, Tarasov's great. Tarasov has to stay healthy. Tarasov's a big guy. But I always kind of get a little hesitant with big goalies because you put your body in really difficult positions, and he's spent some time on the IR. The name you want to remember, Trent, you'll like this guy if you ever get to see him, is a guy by the name of Jet Greaves. He's the young goalie. Spent a lot of time in Cleveland last year at the AHL level. He's played for the Jackets because we've had injuries and we needed guys in the net. So Jet's a guy to watch, and someone who he might end up taking that second spot, which might lead to a lot of time in the net. But we're almost at a point where like we're not good enough to worry about the goalie too much. Like we kind of have to get other things in order to where we can even look at the goalie position as like, that's our main issue to fix. Like we got other things we need to figure out. We got to get Johnny in a good spot. We need to get Fantelli minutes. We got to figure out what our blue line's going to look like. Is Jack Johnson going to play a lot as a defender? I don't know. Is he going to be kind of the seventh guy or, the sixth guy? If he's playing a lot, maybe that's not always the best, but it's going to be interesting to see what exactly this team looks like and just how they play. We got to re-sign Cole. Like there's a lot of things on the checklist before we get to the goalie position, honestly.
Okay, final key to success for me. You got a lot of flowers on this team. You got to let them blossom. You got to give them some patience, give them some water, give them some space to grow and solidify those roots. This team obviously still a little far away from a playoff position. I've got them 8th in the Metropolitan division. Because of that, they're going to have another high draft pick. I think they utilize that to get more blue line help, potentially acquire another first round pick. Maybe you move out Patrik Laine probably won't give you a first in return, but some kind of package, maybe capitalize on the trade deadline to get another first rounder in return and go get a couple of blue line stalwarts to help you and, solidify that as we see the departures in years to come of a Damon Severson or an Ivan Provorov. So you've got pieces to build around here. I don't think it's it's not out of the realm. You can see the vision, right? I can see the road at this point.
Yeah.
Just got to capitalize.
We've drafted well the past couple of years. I will say, I mean, if you listen to this podcast, I've probably been like a little too critical of Jarmo Kekalainen and his front office. One thing that like he's drafted really well, like over the course of his time in the Jackets, maybe there's a couple misses, but guys who didn't pan out for one reason or the other. But like all in all, after every draft, Jackets fans, I think, have been like pretty satisfied. In the last few drafts, they created a lot of capital. So, you know, if they end up at the top level, yeah, it's new people, but I think you're looking at a couple of years of, you know, play the kids, play the youth. You know, you know, the last draft with Caden and those guys that got picked up, that's the horizon you're looking at. Can we keep Johnny here in a good enough space? Can we keep the arena filled with fans? We got the stadium series at the Shoe, the first outdoor game. People are excited. Like, it's not doom and gloom here. I think some fans maybe wish it was because they want the expectation to be higher. I completely understand that. Like, just making the playoffs shouldn't be this, you know, such a huge celebratory deal that it is here in Columbus. But you kind of got to you got to work with the capital and equity that you have. And right now, like, if we're just building to getting back to the playoffs, that's what we have to do. And it's hurts, but that's the reality. So yeah, I see the vision. I see the plan. We have to have a coach that can get us there, because we basically just lost 2 years of that journey. So yeah, we'll be watching. We'll be here. We'll be trying to make it work. But I want to see. I will feel good about this team when I see it on the ice in a way that makes me feel good. I haven't really felt that good the past 2 years.
Okay. Yeah. There are teams in the NHL where you can see a clear path, even if they're bad or quote unquote bad in the standings, right? They're finishing out of a playoff spot. You can see the road. There are other teams that finished low in the standings, and there is not a clear vision, a clear path for them for years to come. So that is promising that we have a paved road at this point. We just got to drive on it. So that's good. As it stands, the Metropolitan standings, we've got the New Jersey Devils in second, the Canes in fourth, the Caps in fifth, Flyers in sixth, CBJ's in eighth. So that leaves open positions at number 1, 3, and 7. Stay tuned for the finale of the Metropolitan Division next week. Are you ready for the hard hat?
I'm ready.
Hard Hats of the Week are sponsored by Leroy's Bar. Located in the heart of Worcester, Ohio, Leroy's establishment has provided cheap pitchers and a safe haven for all of the Fighting Scots of Worcester since 1969. Make your reservations today. Grant, my hard hat of the week is going to Marty Necas. There's nothing like getting a deal done. I know this has been probably a relatively hostile negotiation period if he was going to stay in Carolina or not. And it can never feel good when you're being shopped. And for him to just get a deal done, even if it is for the short term, he can just focus on hockey. He's a player's player, right? He's one of those guys who just has some raw talent, and he deserves a good home that's going to value him for what he deserves to be valued at. I don't know if Carolina is ever going to be the team to commit big time dollars for a guy who's just got raw talent like he does. So I hope it works out in Carolina. If for some reason within this 2-year contract it doesn't, that's not the end of the world. I just want this guy to focus on hockey, and I'm glad he got a deal done at least for the short term.
That's a great one. I like that one. I am gonna butcher this kid's name, but he's out of Worcester, Mass. Steven Nedarazaki. No way I said that right. If you've been watching the Olympics, you know who I'm talking about. This is the pommel horse guy. This is a guy for the U.S. gymnastics team that just does pommel horse, and he locks in at the one moment. He's a specialist. I've been watching this guy through the Olympics. He got the bronze and men's pommel horse, and he was instrumental in the USA team getting the team's all around medal in the last event. Very funny, kind of not a funny kid. That's not the right way to say it, but just having your one role and doing it well. He's kind of taken the country by storm online. But yeah, shout out to this kid. I had a tea time yesterday afternoon. I went golfing with some of my friends, and Ashley and I had the Olympics on, and it was the individual pommel horse medal. And I was like, man, I might miss this tea time just waiting for this kid to get on there. He's got the glasses. He takes the glasses off. He's proud. He can't see, just like me. I have bad vision, so I can relate very well. And he's been funny to watch, and just kind of, like you said, the beauty of the Olympics is he's come around and he starts just buying in and just caring so much about things like men's gymnastics. And you find out, like, hey, this isn't really a sport we've done super well at. And then you got guys like this that just come out of college and lift the floor and ceiling to new heights. So shout out to this guy. He's on just a trail of popularity right now. I got to give him credit.
I love it. Great pick.
Yeah.
We'll keep this rolling. Next week, we'll finish up the Metropolitan division. Shortly after that, we're going to be going out west. We're going to be solidifying that. Folks, before you know it, we got football here in 3 weeks. The Hall of Fame game was this past season. Football starts. The weather gets colder. The Olympics wrap up.
Hockey's right around the corner.
Ice is solidifying, folks. I know it's August, and that's usually the hottest month of the year, but it only gets colder from there, and that's exciting time.
I don't want to rush it. But talking jackets here and the prep for this, I was getting excited. I get excited. I love going to games. Even though this team's not the best, it's going to be really looking forward. I'm looking forward to next week's episode too. I love talking about the teams that we got left to dive into.
I love it, brother. Well, with that, we'll wrap this up. We'd love you guys, as always. Reach out. We'll send you those stickers. We'll finish it up next week with the Pittsburgh Penguins, the New York Islanders, and the Madison Square Garden New York Rangers. We'll see if they can get it done and finally get to that cup glory that they've been looking for since 1994 with Mark Messier. We love you guys. We'll see you next week.